Okay. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
All right. So just to let you all know, I consider myself to be a pretty informal presenter. So if anybody has any questions at any point or an observation that they'd like to make or a story that they'd like to share, I definitely encourage you to unmute your mics and just go ahead and join in. If you are a little more shy, I'll also be going into the chat after this presentation to answer any questions that you may have. So let's go ahead and get started. So aside from potentially landing a job, there's a couple of different purposes for an interview, and some of them have to do with you. So for the employer, an interview is going to show them why they should hire you over someone else. It's going to give them an idea of what it is that you specifically can do for their organization. And then it's going to, most importantly these days, I feel, find out if your personality fits in with the office dynamics. That's just a trend that we're seeing more and more, where somebody may have, the qualifications for a job, but if your personality, if your energy doesn't really fit in with that of everyone else in the office, then that's something that a lot of employers are considering. So the interview is really an opportunity for them to get to know you and get those first impressions. So definitely important. But one thing that I like to tell my students that kind of, I hope, alleviates some of the pressures of an interview is that interviews are also for you. Not only are they a time where you get to share your strengths, your skills, your experiences, really what makes you a unique candidate, excuse me, but it also is an opportunity for you to find out if an organization or a position is also a good fit for you. So, that is something I've had a lot of students ask me, is it okay for me to turn down a position if it just doesn't feel right? You know, it sometimes, especially in this economy, it can be hard to find a job. So you want to be thoughtful about job offers and really have a list of reasons why you would not want to accept an offer. But that is always an option. If something just doesn't feel right, then the interview is an opportunity for you to really figure that out. If you like the vibes that you're getting from your employer, if you really like the details of what the job is going to require of you, things like that. So just keep that in mind, that an interview is also for you. And again, I feel like that just kind of helps take off some of that pressure. Okay, so now I want to talk to you really quickly about what employers are looking for. So there's an organization called the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And what they do is they survey large businesses and organizations in the United States to ask them what they're looking for in new hires. And so they share that data with career centers like ours so that we know what to prepare our students for and really what to focus on throughout your education. So the skills that they're looking for are communication, which I feel like is a part of pretty much any job application.
I
Um,
was.
Good morning. If y'all can mute your mics if you don't have a question, please. Thank you. So communication skills, definitely something that is a part of just about every single job description that I see. So employers are definitely looking for, oral communication skills, especially if it's a position that requires you to communicate with clients or other professional organizations, vendors, things like that. Professionalism and work ethic, being able to carry yourself in a professional manner, conduct business professionally, not having to be told to do something. If you've got some time and maybe you've completed your assignments, seeking something else that you can do for your organization that would be of benefit. So that's kind of where that work ethic comes into play. Teamwork, again, I talked to you just a slide back about the importance of personality and how that fits in with the office dynamics. So clearly, all of that kind of ties into teamwork and being able to work with others, taking initiative and leadership. There are many positions out there where you would have to come forward and take charge in the absence of a manager or something like that, or lead a committee. So having the opportunities to really showcase what you're able to do as far as, leading a group or even delegating assignments, or, just taking charge of a project. So that's something that employers really are valuing. Computer and technical skills, we know that technology is just constantly growing in importance in our society. So being up to date with different technical skills, software programs, um, things like that, is really, really important. And there's a lot of really great ways that you can build those skills. We always promote LinkedIn Learning, which is free for UHD students. But then there's other resources out there. I always tell students you can pretty much YouTube anything. So if you are applying for a job, maybe that requires use of Excel, and maybe Excel is not your thing, then go to YouTube, because surely there's a video out there for you. Problem solving skills and critical thinking. How long does it take for you to come up with a decision that, fits a crisis situation, or one where someone needs help? What kind of problems, is your employer encountering, and how can you come forward and help resolve whatever issues they're experiencing? Career management is another one. So that means being able to articulate how your experiences and your skills align with the industry that you've chosen to go into. So how does your past experiences, how do they connect with what it is that you want to do now? And then the most recent skill that was added is global and intercultural fluency. So that is something that employers are finding more and more value for, so being able to speak foreign languages, being aware of social norms that are associated with different groups, just being, friendly and open and knowledgeable about, different cultures, different values, different viewpoints. And I think all of that is just great. We're a melting pot of a society. More and more people are expressing individual values, and so I think anytime that you can take a class on sensitivity, or just something of that nature, all of that kind of demonstrates to employers that that's something that you're knowledgeable in. Study abroad, I always think too, is a great opportunity for our students. And there's so many study abroad opportunities at UHG that I really do encourage all of you to think about that. There are a lot of opportunities that are based on your major. So you may find something at our school that goes along with your assigned major of that social work or education. So really check it out. So, and I guess before I move on, I do want to express again how important these are. So, keep in mind, like I said, the businesses and organizations are surveyed. These are their responses of what they're looking for in new hires. And in the most recent research, those employers and organizations said that they felt only 11% of college graduates actually possess these skills. 11% is really low. And so, we spend so much time and energy and effort acquiring our education, all of those late night study sessions, papers, all the work that you all put into it. So we want for you to also work on making yourself a complete package, and that's why it's important to focus on these skills as well, because you can have that degree, which is a step in the right direction, but you have to have these soft skills as well. And, another thing that we know is a lot of entry level positions also want for you to come in with some experience. And so that's why things like interning, volunteering are also important and help with building some of these skills. So I do challenge all of you to take a look at this slide and maybe kind of think of an area or two on here where you may need some more development and seek out opportunities to work on that on your own. And if this is something that you need help with, definitely feel free to meet with me so that I can help you with that. So now we're going to get into more of the interview pieces themselves. So keep in mind that when you are notified of an interview, especially if it's over the phone, I know sometimes employers can just send an email letting you know that they would like to interview you. But if you get a call from an employer trying to set up an interview, then be prepared. Sometimes that initial conversation can be a way that the interviewer is already trying to screen out potential candidates. So know if you've applied for a position that there's a possibility you may get a call from an unrecognized number, and that you need to be prepared to maybe even put your best foot forward and share some of those skills and experiences that you bring to the table. Try your best to accommodate the employer's selection for time and date. Keep in mind that a lot of employers have a pretty busy schedule. And so if they're taking the time, to reach out to you, they may not, um, they may not give you several selections of when they're available to actually speak with you. So if you can, definitely try to accommodate their date and time just so that you leave any opportunity open. I would hate for any of you to be passed up on an interview just because, you didn't want to get up early for an interview or something along those lines. Trust me, I've heard it all from my students. So make sure that you do your best to try to accommodate whatever time and date that they do offer. Now, if you have a really good reason, you have an event that you have already planned or something comes up, there's always emergencies, right? Then it's acceptable to ask for another day or time. Just make sure that you give them some notice. If you've already accepted their first date and time, give them appropriate notice of when you need to change. Or if you know right off the bat that you need to ask for another day or time, try not to, maybe just ask once. I wouldn't, continue trying to push it for different dates and times if they offer you a backup option. And then I think it's always great in that initial call or email to ask for the name and title of the person or people who will be interviewing you. Um, I think it's great if you can do some research on those interviewers. LinkedIn makes it really easy to kind of look up um, the professional profile of whoever may be interviewing you. If any of you do not yet have a LinkedIn profile, I do encourage you to take some time and set that up. A lot of employers are utilizing LinkedIn these days. I want to say it's like 80% of employers are using LinkedIn to look up candidates before they come in for an interview. And here's the crazy, scary statistic. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, the next thing that they're looking at statistically is Facebook. And so if your Facebook profile is more personal and maybe you're telling jokes and, you are sharing pictures of, you at parties or doing fun things or silly stuff, they may not see you as the professional that they're looking for. So that's why LinkedIn is a great opportunity to be able to showcase some personality, but also focus on all of the great things that you've accomplished in your educational career, as well as in your working history. So I hope all of you have a LinkedIn. If you don't, definitely think about making one. And if you need help doing that, that's something that I can help you with. And if you already have one and would like advice on what you can do to improve your profile, that's also something that you can schedule an appointment with me for so that we can look at it and I can give you some advice on how to just make it top notch. Okay, so preparing for the interview. One of the things that I have heard from employers in our office, we occasionally will get employers that come in and just kind of give us feedback about our students and what they're experiencing. So one of the main things that I hear quite frequently is that companies feel like students are not taking the time to research them, to find out what their values are, what projects they may have going on in the community, what sort of responsibilities the employer would have in a role. So you want to make sure that you do your research. And I feel like the internet makes it so easy to do that. So make sure that you're reviewing the company's website ahead of time. A lot of companies will have an about us section or something along those lines where you can, find out what the company is all about. Look for their mission statement, look for their values, look for a purpose. Sometimes company websites will have videos about the kind of things that they're doing or what clients they work with. So definitely, do that research ahead of time. Make some notes. I think it's almost like preparing for an exam or something. Take some notes and kind of review those before your interview so that you feel like if somebody asked you, how a company's mission aligns with your own values, you would be prepared to answer that question without having to just come up with something on the spot. So look at the company's website, look at recent news stories that have to do with the organization. You can always find online reviews from customers or from employees that work there. So do your research ahead of time. Also, study the job description carefully. I did just mention that's something that we hear a lot from employers as well, where they'll tell us, we feel like the student didn't really know what the job entailed. And a lot of companies make it so easy to see what that's going to be in that job description. A lot of them really outline, what your role is going to be and what they expect of you. And I do understand that some organizations will just put something very simple and kind of broad together where it's hard to figure out what it is exactly you'll be doing. So I understand that. But definitely take a look at that job description and see if it really outlines for you what your role is going to be. So be familiar with the skills that you need for that job, how your own personal experiences and skills align with what it is that they're looking for, and be prepared to talk about that. You may want to create sort of like an outline to help you. I know anytime I've interviewed, I like to have notes of what my selling points are going to be for a specific position or a specific organization. And then I also like to have notes about the company itself and kind of study that, beforehand so that I feel more prepared. So maybe make an outline if you feel like that's something that also helps you. Make an outline with some of those selling points that you'd want to get across and how they connect directly to what's in the job description. Know who you would report to if hired. I think that that's always something that employers are impressed by. If you know who your boss is going to be, who your coworkers are going to be, what their titles are, what their roles are, and how you can support them in this position. I think that that's something that just shows the employer that you've gone above and beyond in researching, how you can contribute to the organization. Something else that I think is helpful is doing a Google search for interview questions for the title that you've applied for. Um, I think again, I'm a read write learner, so I like being able to, write things out how I would respond to a particular question and then just kind of studying that like I would if I were going to take an exam. So Google is a great place to look for interview questions. Another site that I highly recommend is glassdoor.com. If you've been on Glassdoor, a lot of students that I work with know that Glassdoor is a job search site. But if you look at the top of Glassdoor, you'll see that there's a drop down menu where you type in like the location of where you're looking for a job. There's a drop down menu where it says, jobs. And if you click on that, you can actually click on interviews. So if there's a particular organization that you are interviewing for, you can see if someone who has already interviewed with that organization has shared what questions they were asked during an interview. So that's another way to further prepare you. There may be some questions that surprise you or throw you off. So I always think, it's great to kind of get insight from other people, what they were asked on their interviews, and use that to kind of give you an idea of what direction the employer may be going in for questions. So it's a lot of studying, but it's to make you feel more prepared ahead of time so that you walk into the interview, you don't feel as nervous, or when you're logging in for your interview, you feel confident, in that digital interview that's taking place. Whoops, sorry. Okay, so this little graphic that I have on this slide, just it's a funny story. If you get time, you may look it up. So this man was doing an interview live, and he thought he was prepared, and then all of a sudden his cat jumps into the frame. So that's his cat's tail that you see there. And it's kind of funny. He's like yelling at his cat, like to get out of the way, which of course, if anyone has a cat, cats don't really listen to direction. They kind of just do their own thing. So really funny story, but just kind of goes along with some of this preparation piece. You want to make sure that when you are preparing for this digital interview, because most likely right now that's what you'll be doing just in COVID, that your equipment is set up in a quiet location where there's not going to be distractions from pets, loud traffic, or construction that's taking place, music, um, family members. I know I conducted a presentation early in the summer where my mother was visiting, and she was just making all sorts of noise in the background. So I know the next time I did a presentation, I had to, just go into another room and close the door when she was there. So think about where you're setting up this tech equipment. Make sure it's somewhere where you can focus. Focusing is so important. So we want to avoid any distractions that may just, throw your thought process off. If your room's background is in view, tidy up as needed. Nobody wants to see, I've actually been in meetings with students where I can tell that they're like in the bathroom or something like that. So, think about the background, and how it's going to appear to a professional. I don't mind if you're talking to me in your bathroom, but an employer may mind. And so you want to think about, what that background looks like. Does it convey professionalism? Does it look tidy? And if you really can't, be in a background in a room that looks professional, then think about creating some sort of filter or something like that, where the employer, won't see what's going on around you. I know right now my home is under renovation, does not look the best, and so I know that would definitely be, something that I would be thoughtful about if I were participating in interviews right now. But I'm not, because I love my job and I love helping all of you. So, but just something for you all to think about. Make sure that the lighting source in the room is sufficient for the time of your interview. So if you have an early morning interview, you want to make sure that the sunlight is not like streaming in on your face and creating odd shadows. Or if it's really dark, then you want to make sure that you have appropriate lighting so that you don't look like a vampire hiding out in the dark. So think about the lighting source and make sure that it's sufficient, at whatever time your interview is scheduled for. Test your webcam to make sure that you have a flattering angle, that it's not too close. Or if you're like me, that kind of worries about that double chin, that it's angled at the appropriate level so that you feel confident about yourself and how you appear on camera. Test your audio levels by speaking into the mic, just as you will during the interview, so that you can make sure that everything is set where the employer can hear you. The last thing you want is to be participating in an interview where you have really great responses prepared and then the employer just really can't hear. So even if you want to practice with a friend, sometimes before presentations, I'll ask one of my coworkers, hey, can you all jump into, Zoom so that I can test this out and make sure that you all can hear me appropriately. So if there's someone that you can, practice with just to make sure that everything sounds good, looks good, then I always recommend doing that ahead of time. Test your internet connection speed. I know that that's hard. I feel like right now, the internet is so important. And so I know sometimes there's some, just overcrowding of usage. But you want to make sure that your internet connection speed is appropriate, so that you're not freezing up on your employer during the interview. And then make sure that you make any adjustments that you need to make sure that your speed is at its optimal level. So if you have, applications open that are kind of slowing you down a little bit, make sure that those are closed, things like that. Anything that you can do to kind of help make sure that you're not cutting in and out. And always, I feel like it's important to make sure that you have a backup source. So, right now I'm speaking to you all on my laptop, but I have my cell phone close by, which I know I can use data to jump into Zoom if I need to meet with all of you. So that's just an example of how it's great to be prepared, just in case, right? We don't want to cut you off in the middle of an interview if you're really on point and on a roll, and then all of a sudden things come, cut out. That can really throw you off. So here's a shameless plug for us. It's a great idea, I feel, to schedule a mock interview with me if you would like to prepare beforehand. That's something that we can do. We also have an option for an appointment that we call interview preparation. So if you don't want to like actually participate in a mock interview where you get all dressed up and I act like the employer and we proceed from there, we can do an interview preparation session where it's a little more informal and we can have more of a conversation about what potential questions you may be asked and then what some best responses would be to those questions. So we do have a couple of those options for appointments. The other thing that we have that's fairly new is in Jobs for Gators, we do have something now called the mock interview module. So this is where we have put together a collection of interviews that you can utilize through the system. So on your homepage of your Jobs for Gators profile, if you look at the menu that's on the left-hand side, you'll see several different options. And if you've used Jobs for Gators before, maybe to schedule a coaching appointment or RSVP for one of our events, then you know what I'm talking about. If you've never used it before, every student has a Jobs for Gators profile, and you can access it on our website, which is uhd.edu/career. You can also find it by clicking on quick links on UHD's homepage, and then you'll see main career center. And so if you click on that, you'll scroll down until you see the Jobs for Gators logo, just like the one that's on the screen right now. And every student, like I mentioned, has an account. So all you have to do to activate your account, if you've never been in there before, is sign in using your Blackboard username and your Blackboard password. And then it'll ask you a few questions to get your profile set up, and then you'll be good to go. So on that homepage, you'll see the option for mock interviews. So if you click on that, it'll be a digital recording where there will be somebody. I don't know exactly. I think there's like a male character and a female character interchangeably asking questions. And so they will ask questions and you'll be able to record your responses. And once you've completed that mock interview, I will be notified so that I can go through and watch the video, see how it went, and then be able to give you some feedback via email about maybe how some responses could be improved or things that you did right, stuff like that. So definitely check it out. Like I said, those mock interviews that we have in there, we have a collection. A lot of them are oriented towards specific careers. I know, for example, I have a teaching mock interview that I've put together. I know I have a law enforcement based one. I have a case manager based one. So if there's something in particular that you're interviewing for, And those are just examples. There's so many others. We have customer service positions if you're just looking, for something like that temporarily right now while you're in school, just to make ends meet. So there's different ones in there, and we do encourage you to take advantage of it. So Jobs for Gators, that is your other resource. So now kind of going over some tips about what you should be doing during the interview. So even though this is a digital interview, we do encourage you to dress as if you were interviewing in person. I feel like this just kind of helps create a mood, and sets you in a different mindset. Um, on that note, we do encourage you to avoid wearing white for a digital interview because sometimes, according to just depending on the lighting, it can appear to be too bright. Watch out facial details, things like that. So that's just a tip. But again, we do want for you to dress professionally so that you kind of fill in that mindset of, a face to face interview and what that would be like. It is important to smile, which I know can feel awkward, because you're looking into a camera most likely. But smiling, we know employers favor. I did talk to you at the beginning about how employers are really considering personality and how that fits into office dynamics. So smiling is always going to be more favored, obviously, than frowning. So keep that in mind. Stay focused. I know, again, it's really easy for things to kind of to interrupt us and kind of maybe cause us to lose focus. We may get a text message or a call or an email that comes through, a Facebook notification, an Instagram notification, things like that that come through during a digital interview. So do your best to kind of silence those, so that way you can stay focused on, sharing your skills and qualifications with this employer for this potential opportunity, rather than being distracted by, our ordinary everyday occurrences. Um, Keep water close by in case you get a dry throat. That's just something that's pretty common when we are nervous, that sometimes we get that dry mouth. And so having a glass of water nearby to make sure that you're able to clear that up and continue talking well enough where the employer can hear you. I think that that's important. Create quick access to important documents like your resume or references. You never know, the employer may ask you, hey, can you share your screen so that we can see your resume? Or, hey, can you share your screen to show us a list of your references? Even though you may have submitted them as part of your application piece, it's possible that they may not have looked at it, or if they looked at it, maybe they've forgotten and kind of want to look at it again and maybe discuss certain points with you. So make sure that you have access to those things. Connect with the hiring professional on time. Again, that's just going to showcase your level of professionalism, and keep time zone differences in mind. Here we're Central Time, but if you're interviewing Eastern Time, or Pacific Time, then that's going to be different from what we're used to here. So make sure, if there's a time zone difference, that you look it up to see what time that's going to be here in Central Time so that you can make adjustments as needed. I talked earlier about keeping a phone close by. I think that that's important just in case, that digital interview loses connection. Then, perhaps they may call you on your cell phone, or you can reach out to them on your cell phone, or home phone, just to let them know what's happened, and keep that interview going. Project confidence by sitting up straight. So your posture is going to matter. So just make sure that you're sitting up straight, not slouching, just to kind of show them that you mean business and you know what you're doing. Um, Resist the temptation to watch yourself on the monitor. I know this is hard. Uh, I know I've been guilty where I'm like, oh man, I see this hair out of place that's just really sticking up. But definitely try not to watch yourself on the monitor. Maintain eye contact with your employer by looking directly into the camera. I know it's not the same as looking at a person face to face, but it kind of feels like it. So definitely look at that camera and try not to look at that little screenshot of yourself, so that you can really establish more of a connection with the employer. I think eye contact is important for establishing connection with somebody. And so this is the way that we're having to do it these days, is by looking directly into the camera. Refrain from doing anything distracting. So, I think it's a great idea to practice with someone ahead of time and ask them if they notice anything. Are you someone who taps your fingernails on your desk or swivels in your chair or, maybe plays with the pen? Figure those things out ahead of time so that you can try to keep them a little more in check on the day of your interview. Of course, you don't want to seem unnatural and robotic, but you want to be sure that you're aware of maybe some of these habits that we have when we're nervous and try to keep them in check. A lot of mics are very sensitive, I feel like. And so even something as small as tapping your fingernails on a desk may sound very loud to the person who's interviewing you, where it may interfere with your voice as you're responding to a question. So things like that, we have to keep in mind. And then I mentioned to you earlier the importance of notes. I think notes are helpful for you in remembering certain talking points and maybe some questions that you may have for the employer. Um, and you can also take notes during your interview. I think that it showcases the employer that you are interested in what they have to say, that you want to remember what they have to say, and may give you some ideas of things to ask once your interview has been completed and they give you that opportunity to ask some questions of them. So you're always able to take notes. So I mentioned dressing.
Saying, excuse me, so you're saying it's okay to take notes into the interview with you?
I think it's a little different digitally and over the phone. I would say if you're going in person, having some notes, it seems maybe like you were nervous or not confident, but knowing that a lot of our interviews these days are kind of conducted digitally or over the phone, I think it's easier to kind of have some notes that you can refer to, especially for phone interviews. They're not looking directly at you, so if you have some notes on a piece of paper or something, they'll not know that. If it's a digital interview where they can see you, the only thing would be if you've got these notes, you want to make sure that you're not looking away and down at them or, something like that, where they're kind of like, why isn't she maintaining eye contact? So just keep that in mind. But I do feel like with a phone interview, definitely you can definitely do that. And even with some digital interviews, if you just kind of figure out how to keep that eye contact maintained with whoever's interviewing you. If you go in person, I would say probably not pull those notes out. Like you may want to have those notes with you in case, let's say you get there 15 minutes early and you want to review your notes before they call you back into the room for an interview. I think that that's always a good idea. And then you can take that notebook in with you and you can ask or let them know that you're taking notes during the interview. But I would say, you don't want to pull those out in the middle of an interview to kind of refresh yourself. Let's say an employer asks you, what do you know about the company? And you have to refer to your notes for that in an in-person interview. It may not look like you really took the time to kind of study them and absorb the information. So different for in-person. But I feel like over the phone, not a problem because they're not seeing that. And digitally, so a video interview, as long as you have those notes where you're not losing eye contact for most of the interview, I think that that's fine as well. Did that answer the question? Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. That was a good question. So thank you so much for asking that. Again, if anyone has any questions, definitely feel free to unmute yourselves and ask. Or if you're, shy about kind of jumping in on camera, I'll definitely get into the chat at the end of this presentation and see if I can answer your questions for you that way. So feel free to chime in whenever you'd like. So I did mention to you all dressing professionally for this digital interview, just to kind of get you in the mindset. So we have some visualizations here of what that might look like. So basically, the main points are that you see everyone in these photos has, a professional piece, and you don't have to wear a suit to look professional, even though all of these pictures have, every person in a suit. You don't have to have a suit. In fact, I feel like most students these days don't have suits. I know even I don't have a full suit, but at least having a nice blazer or a jacket that just feels professional and makes you feel good and confident. I think is important. It's an important staple piece in everyone's closet. A nice button down, I think, is also good. We did mention to you that white can make you look washed out on camera. So maybe be thoughtful about what kind of color to choose. Nothing too bright or over the top, but also not anything too light. So something that's kind of in the middle, I think would be good during this time. And even though they're not going to really see the bottoms, you may want to just have a nice piece of or a nice pair of slacks or a pencil skirt or something along those lines, to just have some professional pieces in your closet for even maybe when COVID is over and we are going back to interviewing in person. I think it's always important to have a nice jacket, a top that feels formal, and then a nice pair of slacks or a skirt, closed-toed shoes, maybe a tie for those that want to wear one. So just kind of keep those things in mind. So again, just visualizations here of what that professionalism would look like. And I wanted to share this with everybody because I know, one of the things that we hear from students is, that they don't have the budget for professional pieces. And I get it. I am very frugal when it comes to, clothing. And so one of our former career coaches put together this list of thrift stores in the Houston area. She's a, awesome thrifter and knows really where to find, certain pieces at which thrift stores. And so she's made this list, which is on our website as well. So it kind of gives you an idea of what thrift stores that she, is calling out for having good items and what you can find in each one. So you see, like the first one, Assistance League of Houston and Montrose. She says, watch for women's boutique items, business attire, signature jewelry. So she gives you an idea of what you can look for in each of these places. So if you are like me and you're more of a budget shopper, then this is definitely a resource that you might want to look for on our website. Okay, so now getting into some potential questions that you may be asked. So the first one is very common. I feel like everyone gets this question. Tell me about yourself. So when I've asked this question of students during practice interviews, I get several varieties of responses. But what we want for you to do is really focus on your education and your experiences. I know the slide says work, but experiences don't have to be paid positions. It could be an internship, it could be volunteering that you've done for a while for a certain organization that's prepared you for whatever position you're interviewing for. So really focus on your education and your experience. Share positive feelings about those particular things. What you enjoyed about your studies, what classes really interested you, and how maybe that ties into the role that you're preparing for. What you enjoyed about your workplace or internship site or volunteering site, and maybe how that influenced you to apply for this position. Employers like to know that. So I always suggest to students, when you are telling them about your education and your experience in this question, kind of transition to the next question by telling them why it is that you chose to apply for the position. It could be because Let's say that you interned for an organization with that had foster children, that you were working with, and maybe that's something that you had never been exposed to before, and you really enjoyed, the contributions there and how you were able to impact foster children. And so, let's say now you're trying to apply for like a foster care caseworker. You can talk about how your experiences in your internship really led to you seeking, those sorts of roles now that you're getting ready to graduate. So these are the things that we want to focus on. We want to leave off personal details like, if you're married or you have children or how old you are. That's something that I commonly hear. Students will say, well, I'm, 28 years old. And, that's something that can set you up unknowingly for discrimination. Unfortunately, ageism is a thing. And so we want to make sure that you're not discriminated for any reason. And so that's why we tell you focus on the professional aspects like education and work or experience. What are your strengths and weaknesses? This is another common question. They may ask you for two strengths, two weaknesses, or just kind of, say, what are they in general? So make sure that you have an idea of what you want to sell here. And I think usually it's much easier to think about our strengths than it is to think about our weaknesses. So that's something that I want for you all to kind of focus on. Be honest with yourself and kind of say, what are some areas that I struggle with? Everyone has weaknesses. I have had students that come in for practice interviews that say, well, I don't have any weaknesses. Well, if you're human, you do. So, and the employers want that. They appreciate honesty. I did talk about personality at the very beginning of this and how that comes into the whole hiring process. So be honest and kind of, maybe share a couple of your weaknesses with them. But the key here is that you want to tell them what you're doing to improve in those areas. So let's say, for example, that you feel like you're not the most tech savvy person. Maybe you can say, I am not the most technologically savvy person, but that's something that I'm working on. I have been, participating in trainings on LinkedIn Learning to learn more about, SPSS and Excel and just different programs out there so that I feel more comfortable and eventually will be able to say that this is one of my strengths. So you can always, showcase that there's something that you're doing to improve on those areas. And that's something that's really, really important when answering this question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I one time asked a student this question during a mock interview, and he surprised me with just two words, which of course he elaborated on after that. But at first he said, with you. And so, just that kind of, confidence was like, wow, like, if I was the actual interviewer, that's something that would be memorable for me about interviewing this candidate. And clearly it was memorable because this was several years ago, since I've been working at UHD, and I still remember when he said that to me. So you always want to show an employer that you have a plan, maybe for leadership within their own organization. Employers don't really want to invest time and energy and money into candidates that they feel are going to leave them quickly. So if you can kind of give them an idea that you want, to be with an organization and you want to seek out opportunities for career growth with them, then that's something that an employer is going to value. Why should we hire you? So this is really your personal sales pitch. So you want to think about all of your qualifications, your experiences that you've had, your skills that would all make you a good fit for the position that you're interviewing for. Remind them about your education. And then one of the things that we know studies show is growing in importance. When this question is asked, employers want to hear how your own personal values align with company values. So that's why I tell you it's very important to do your research ahead of time. Look for that About Us section where you can see the company's mission statement or their values and know what they are so that you can be prepared to share how they align with your own personal goals or your own personal values. So studies show this is something that employers want to hear when you answer this question. Tell me about a time that you experienced conflict and how you handled it. Everyone has had a conflict. It doesn't have to necessarily be in the workplace. It could be, in a classroom setting. It could be, with a group project. I think group projects just cause a lot of stress and anxiety for so many people. So everyone has surely had, a time where there was a conflict. And so it's important to kind of showcase how you got through that. What was the thought process that you took on to figure out what you needed to do to resolve the issue? Were you professional when you were working through that conflict? Was your response mature? So this is really what they want to see is that kind of problem solving ability. So make sure that you focus on that. Tell me about a time you worked as a team to accomplish a goal. So here they want to know, what was your role when you were working with other people? And are you a team player, or are you somebody that's kind of going to dominate? Coming in as a new employee, you want to make sure that you come in with an open attitude and a willingness to learn and kind of adapt to your setting. Rather than coming in and immediately wanting to change the game. So I think that they're going to be interested to see, what your role is as a team player. So give them an example of, a team project that you had to work on, or maybe a job that you've had where you had to work as a team, and really showcase what your role was and how you contributed to the team there. Give me an example of when you tried to accomplish something and failed. What did you learn from the experience? Again, these are questions that just kind of show that you're human. Everyone has failed at something. So, give an example. It shows your humility. It may be an opportunity that allows for them to laugh and kind of see a little bit of your personality. So think about this, and give them an example. But then, what did you learn from it? That's the most important piece of this. Let's say that, again, I'm going to use these pesky group projects as an idea. Let's say that, you were working with part of a group, and everyone had been assigned a certain, piece of the project, and somebody didn't come through. And, so that was kind of a fail for you. What did you learn from that? Maybe is it that, there needs to be like check-ins at a certain point, or maybe working in twos for certain pieces of a project rather than each person getting an individual piece. There's got to be something that you learn from this experience. So they want to know, what it is that you acquired, so that you don't make the same mistake twice. Tell me about a time when you had multiple projects to work on at once. How did you prioritize your tasks? So the employers here want to see that you're able to be organized, that you're able to prioritize things according to, maybe deadline or importance, maybe depending on what organization is involved. If there's like, a vendor or somebody that's really critical for the company. So they want to know that you're able to make sound decisions and that you're able to stay organized. Maybe you have a planner. I know I have one student in particular that I can think of that just has every color of pen that you can think of, and she loves to color code in her planner according to, one's for school, one's for work, one's for volunteering, one's for internship, one's for extracurricular stuff, one's for health. So, whatever it is that you do to stay organized, this is what they want to know. So we do know that behavioral based questions are more common these days in interviews. So they'll ask you, tell us about a time when you had a conflict at work. Just a question that we saw just the last slide. So we do encourage you to utilize this format that we like to call the STAR format. So lay out the situation, talk about the task that you were responsible for, what action that you took, and then what was the result of that. So you see this example that we have here for you on the slide. So the situation, management was frustrated that line workers didn't understand their impact on customer satisfaction. So the task was, as an HR intern, this person was responsible for assisting the HR director with special projects. And so her action was to suggest a meeting with each of the work groups to make goals and to increase efficiency, and then display those ideas on bright posters so that everyone can see that. And so the result of having that visualization of what the goals were, helped everyone to kind of stay focused. And so customer complaints were decreased. So you see, this kind of breaks it down for you of how to respond to those behavioral responses. The most important thing in my mind being that result. As a, as a consequence of what you did, this is the result that came from it. So this is what we want for you to think about when you're answering those types of questions. What were you responsible for, and what was the result, that came from whatever action you took? So there are some illegal questions, and I can tell you, I've been asked about my age in an interview. It was very uncomfortable. So just keep in mind, if anybody asks you anything related to race, sex, age, marital or family status, religion, your national origin, birthplace, disability, all sorts of things, if it's a personal question like that, you do not have to answer it. And in fact, I would encourage you, if you are asked a personal question like this, that you report it, if you feel comfortable, to an HR manager for the company at which you're applying. So just keep in mind, if you do not feel comfortable, if somebody asks you a question about your age, like I said, I was asked that, then know that you do not have to answer that question. So some tips. Make sure that you listen to the entirety of the interviewer's question. You may feel like you know what the interviewer is going to ask you, but you could be wrong. So make sure that you listen to the entire question before formulating a response. If you're having a hard time answering a question, it is acceptable to ask for a moment to think about the response rather than sit in silence. I feel like that it just creates a little bit of awkwardness and tension. So rather than just kind of saying, while you're trying to think of something, you can say, wow, that's a difficult question. Can I please have a minute to think about it? And then that will alert the employer that you're processing what they've asked of you, and trying to think of a response that's fitting to the question. If you don't understand an interviewer's question, ask for clarification. I know that that may also seem uncomfortable, but I think it's better to get that clarification and then give them the answer that they're kind of looking for, rather than give them an incorrect response that really wasn't what they were asking for. So don't be afraid to ask for clarification on what it is that they're asking of you. Always ask questions after the conclusion of your interview. I've participated on several hiring committees, and I can tell you that this is something that sometimes you're scored on. I know in our office, if we're interviewing candidates for career coach or for our admin position, if they do not ask us questions, then we give them a 0 for this section. So make sure that you come in with a couple of questions prepared. If you're doing your research ahead of time, you may formulate some questions, or if you're taking notes during your interview, there might be something that somebody said at some point that prompts you to ask a specific question at the end. So that's where your notes kind of come in handy. Before leaving the interview, re-express your interest in the job. Tell the employer why you feel that you're a good fit for the company or position. So again, this is kind of like your personal sales pitch, that just kind of reminds them why they should hire you. Don't ask about salary information at your interview. We tell you that we want for you to reel them in. If this is a fishing analogy, we want for you to reel them in before they actually, get them to take the bait, before they actually, offer you anything. So definitely, wait to ask them about salary information until they've made you an offer. Following up is important. There's a statistic out there, like 26% of employers are more likely to hire you just based off of, your thank you note. So make sure to send an email within 24 to 48 hours. Really try to make it 24 of your interview. Just letting them know that you appreciate them taking the time to meet with you. And if there's something in particular that was expressed during your interview that maybe stuck out, mention it so that they can remember who you are, and it shows that you're paying attention. I had an interviewer that asked me about personality types, and I remember that that kind of stuck out to me a little bit as being different from most of my other interviews. So when I sent a thank you to that interviewer, I mentioned that. And she did come back later on and say that helped me to remember, that conversation we had and who you were. So just keep that in mind. Anything interesting or out of the norm, always good to kind of put into those thank yous. Okay, so that is all I have. Does anyone have any questions for me? I'm going to actually just stop screen sharing. Let me really quickly show you. We have a survey that I would like for all of you to complete if you can. The link is there, tinyurl.com/CPS interview fall 2020. And then you'll click on interviewing from the drop down menu. So my supervisor looks at these. So if you would like to leave some feedback on how you think the presentation went today, we'd love to see that. So we can always seek ways to improve and offer you the best service we can. So I'm going to stop sharing and jump into the chat just in case there's any questions there. Okay. So let's see what we've got. And definitely feel free to unmute your mics and let me know if you have any questions or anything that you'd like to contribute. Oh, okay. Nice. I see a lot of people saying good morning. That's nice. What technical and computer skills are free to UHD students? So I always recommend LinkedIn Learning because that's where you can really, access information to a certain software program. I know, for example, many of my students that are CJ or social work have to utilize a software program called SPSS when you take that dreaded statistics class. So, LinkedIn Learning is a place where you can gather some more information about SPSS. So that you feel better at using the actual software. So LinkedIn Learning is the site that we recommend. I did also mention YouTube. There's other things out there. Khan Academy, KAHN, and then Academy, started off as a website where you could learn about math, but now they have so many different things that you can learn on there, including technology. So there's lots of free resources out there to utilize when it comes to learning technical skills. And I feel you. I'm not the most tech savvy person either, so I love having access to that stuff. What classes or programs do you recommend to strengthen my communication skills? So obviously, communication class is part of the Common Core. So that I think is going to be important. But now let's talk about maybe some organizations that you can join. That's another point. I think student organizations are so critical to building some of those skills that we talked about at the very beginning. So, if communication is something that you feel like you struggle with, maybe Toastmasters or something like that. I do believe we have Toastmasters at UHD. And so that will help with maybe that public speaking. If it's more of written communication that you feel like you need help with, the English classes, I think, are definitely going to help with that. Technical writing, stuff like that is going to help prepare you for those communication classes. Okay. I would like to schedule an appointment to make a LinkedIn profile. Yay! I love that. If any of you have decided that you would like to meet with me as a result of this presentation, then that tells me I've done my job. So the way to schedule an appointment is through Jobs for Gators. So again, if you've never utilized Jobs for Gators before, you're going to go to our website. You're going to scroll down until you find the Jobs for Gators logo, and then you're going to click on Student and Alumni Login. You log in using your Blackboard username and Blackboard password. If you've never been in there before, you're going to answer a few questions to set up your profile. It will ask you several questions, but you only have to respond to the ones with an asterisk. And then once you're on your home page, you're going to click on the tab that says coaching and calendar in the menu on the left. And that's how you'll schedule an appointment with me. I'll be notified that you've requested an appointment, and then I'll be able to get that approved for you. Let's see. Oh, yay, people are, thank y'all so much. People are, being complimentary. I appreciate that. Are there any other dates or times that this will be happening again? So the good news is that I have been recording this presentation. So if you would like, what I'll do is I always transfer recordings to our YouTube channel. So you can either look for us on YouTube. We are, I believe it's UHD Career Center Maine on YouTube. But if you want to shoot me an email directly so that I can send you that link, I'm going to put my email in the chat for anybody that would like it. Let me put this out there for everyone so that everyone can see it. Okay, so there's my email. It's hatfieldl@uhd.edu. So if anybody would like, the link to this video, once I get it converted, I'll definitely be able to send it to you. Or if you want a copy of the PowerPoint, I can send that to you as well. So are there any other questions before I go ahead and let y'all go? Remember, you can feel free to unmute yourselves and ask away if there's any particular questions. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I hope that this was helpful. Again, if you have any questions and would like to reach out, you're welcome, Penny. If you would like to reach out, then feel free to. My email is there. I love working with all of you so much. And so, let me get to know you. Let me hear about your career goals, and let's see what we can do to get you career ready and help you meet those goals. Okay. Thank y'all so much. I hope that you have a great day. Bye.